What's up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Goal Line Dynasty. Today, we are going to get into a two-round Superflex rookie mock draft. Why 2 rounds? Well, because I don't feel like talking about the 25th ranked rookies out there. We might do a different video for some late-round rookie sleepers, but might not do that until after the NFL draft. But before we get into our pre-draft Superflex rookie mock draft, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm great. It's awesome to see your smiling face, as usual. Recording late night on this one, getting the job done and trying to put the content out there. So like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, of course. But yeah, I'm enjoying this one. Which pick do you want? You want evens or odds?
I'll take the odds because I want to take.
Of
Actually,
course.
no. I'll take the evens. I'll take the evens because I want to do something at number 2, which apparently has become a not popular pick at number 2, which is just asinine to me. Before we actually get into it, though, speaking of the subscribers, shout out to everybody who is subscribing, liking the videos. We do really appreciate it. The channel over the last month and a half, we've grown about 45 followers in the last 4 weeks, which Tyler and I we talk about it all the time. We are absolutely pumped about. So just for everyone watching, for everyone subscribing, just sincerely thank you for tuning in, and glad we've been able to make some content that makes you want to stick around and keep on coming back. So shout out to you guys. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here of the sleeper draft. Let's open that up. Boom, boom. All right, so let's get into our mock draft here. So Tyler, you're going to be picking our odd numbers. I'll be selecting at the even. So are you going to shock the world and pick someone other than Bijan Robinson at 101?
No, I'm not. And honestly, I feel like you always are taking the easier picks in every mock we do. Like, not only is it easier to take Bijan, but drafting from the 2, you have to make your pick at quarterback, apparently. So it does kind of suck to be the one with this kind of pressure in this video. So good for you.
Yeah, you know what, though? It's because the guy that I'm going to take, I'm very excited about, mostly because he is the current odds favorite to be the next Carolina Panthers quarterback. I'm not going to skip over your picks this quickly so often, but nobody needs to talk about Bijan Robinson at this point in the offseason. We all know he's a generational running back. He's the next coming of Saquon Barkley. He's the next coming of Christian McCaffrey. If you have 101, there's probably almost no chance that you're not taking him here. So, yeah, enjoy Bijan Robinson there. My number 2 pick is going to be Mr. Bryce Young from Alabama. He is going to be – he is the current odds favorite. He's minus 1,000 or more to go to Carolina at pick number 1. I would be – as a Carolina fan, I would be absolutely shocked if they go – CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson at number 1 instead of Bryce Young. Young's an absolute student of the game. He is just a genius out there. The only knock on him is his size, right? If Bryce Young was 6'2", Chicago might not have traded the pick, right? Like, Bryce Young would be considered one of those really can't miss big name prospects if he didn't have these size concerns. The only thing is the size, right? So I think he's going to be a tremendous quarterback in real life. That's going to be a lot of longevity for our fantasy teams. He's got a decent supporting cast in Carolina right now, and they're only going to improve the roster this time in a year to 2 years from now. So, yeah, give me Bryce Young. Give me the longevity. Going to be excited to keep that on my fantasy squad.
Yeah, and I think it's he's going to likely be the number 1 overall quarterback drafted in the NFL, and that's usually how I base, who I'm going to take as the first quarterback overall in the rookie drafts. It's hard to argue with what the NFL says and what the NFL wants. Nobody should really act like they know more than the NFL scouts that are doing this all day, every day, especially coming up to the draft, and that their jobs rely on it. So I'm not going to disagree with them. But here I think that I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson. I know that we're doing this without landing spots, but he really has grown on me watching over those combine videos and looking back at his tape. And apparently, he could go to what I think is the best landing spot for any quarterback this year. is Indianapolis. So I really like Anthony Richardson and what his upside brings, because they do have they do have pieces on that offensive line. Quentin Nelson's obviously an animal. Shout out to the Jersey boy. But yeah, I love Anthony Richardson's upside, and I think he's got the easiest path to be a productive quarterback, regardless of really where he goes right now. Because of that rushing upside, he's going to be 15 to 18 point per game quarterback regardless. I think in year one could be, a top 15, top 12, even at his ceiling could be a top 5 quarterback in his rookie year, like Lamar Jackson was. So nobody really liked the way Lamar Jackson threw the ball coming out of college, and a lot of people like Anthony Richardson and what he looks like, and I'm one of those people. So I'm okay taking the risk of him over the safety of CJ Stroud here.
See, and I like that you point out that it is most definitely a risk taking Anthony Richardson. CJ Stroud is still the favorite to be the number 2 quarterback off the board. Whether or not Houston actually takes him at number 2 overall in real life has yet to be seen. I know there's some weird behind the scenes stuff going on between Houston and CJ Stroud. I think his agent is Deshaun Watson's agent, and I think there's just some weird professional bad blood in between those two, but I digress there. Taking Richardson at 103, personally, I think I would take CJ Stroud at 103, so I'm pretty happy to get him here at number 4. With Richardson, like you said, it's a big risk. We don't know where he's going to go in real life. He could go as early to Indianapolis at 4. He could go to Seattle at 5, right? Like, how often is Seattle going to be picking up this high? I know they just re-signed Geno Smith, but a lot of people are saying Anthony Richardson is a project. Maybe he rides the bench his rookie year, and then he gets the nod in the future after Geno starts Genoing again, right? Not that I'm rooting against Geno, but we know what Geno is. Could go to Detroit at number 6, could go to the Raiders at number 7. Either way, we would all be very surprised to see Anthony Richardson fall out of, I would say, the top 11, right? Like, I'm looking at the draft board now. The Titans pick at pick 11, and if Anthony Richardson is there at 11, the skid is going to stop there, right? Like, someone's going to take the chance on him. So we'll see what happens. A risky pick at 103, but like you said, ceiling is sky high. So here at 104, I'm taking CJ Stroud. It's just a very safe pick, right? CJ Stroud, he's got the size that Bryce Young doesn't have. I don't think his game is as good and as polished as Bryce Young's, but he does have that size. He throws one hell of an accurate ball. He might be the most accurate quarterback in this class this year. It's very exciting to watch. My only knock on CJ Stroud is he does a lot of things really, really well. But aside from that accuracy that he's shown in college, there's nothing that he has that I would say is particularly an elite trait. Plus, when you throw to Jackson Smith-Njigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the other guy's name that's there because I butcher it every single time. Tyler knows that I like to butcher names here. But we don't know if CJ Stroud is really good or if he's just a product of having absolute elite wide receivers. So we'll see what happens there. But at pick 104, I'm happy to get my QB2 of the class in CJ Stroud. So Tyler, you're up here at pick 5, and I'm going to set it and forget it here because I already know what you're about to do.
Yeah, well, so I wanted to say before we moved on there, but really quick, what would you rather have? Just a quick thought in my head: 101 and 104, or the 102 and 103? If the 103 was Stroud for you,
I would
swing in CJ Stroud or Bijan and A Rich.
I think it really depends. If I'm like firmly in a rebuild and I have no chance of competing this year, I'm taking the 102 and 103. And even to go a bit farther, if I'm in a full rebuild, I'm trading 101 for the biggest haul that someone's going to offer me in my league, because I'm not taking Bijan Robinson on a complete rebuild team. If I think my team is not going to be ready for up to 3 seasons, Robinson's just going to collect dust on my bench, right? Or not put up legitimate points for a legitimate team, however you want to say it. But yeah, in that scenario, if I'm even competing a little bit, I'm going 101 and 104. So most of my teams, not to brag, I am competing. So give me 101 and 104. I'll take the quarterback, whichever QB3 falls to me, and then the generational running back. I'm going to take those guys in most scenarios.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There's a lot of rosters that you should really, move back to 101. There's there's not many players in the league that you can really get multiple firsts for and a deal straight up. So if you're going to get it for a running back and that's what you need on your roster, then it's definitely the move to do it. I asked one of our friends the other day in a one QB league, would you trade the 102 for Brees Hall? Just asking. I didn't want to do it, but I was just making this exact point to him. And he was like, I know I should, but like I wouldn't right now because I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. And it's like, dude, if you already have a prospect that you know has hit and is going to hit, like, I mean, if you, I don't understand. It's like I just don't understand the values sometimes that people are willing to pay for these rookie picks, like in these straight up trades. So I would try to take advantage of them now if you have, a really high end one, because there's not a lot of players that people are willing to give up multiple firsts for when they have a name on them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's always something to look out for. Rookie fever's at an all-time high, and it's going to be over the next several weeks. So if you can get really good value for selling away these picks, take the guarantee, take the sure thing. I disagree with you that Brees Hall is a sure thing, right? But you know how I feel about that. So either way, let's take a look at your pick JSN here at 105.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just much prefer him as a prospect over Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has the question mark of the size. Although Jahmyr Gibbs' ceiling is obviously incredible, we have to remember that he's also between 15 to 25 pounds lighter than all the people that he's being compared to, between the DeAndre Swifts and Alvin Kamara's and Aaron Jones of the world. He is significantly smaller than all of those guys. So I'm going with Jackson Smith and Jigba here. Not that I would go anywhere else besides Jahmyr Gibbs with the next pick, but I think it's pretty clear for me that I want this receiver who did amazing things next to these other two incredible NFL wide receivers in Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. I think that he is the true day one receiver with no question marks really in this class for me. I'm not worried about the fact that he only plays from the slot because a lot of great receivers that win fantasy football games, a lot of them play in the slot, and we like PPR. That's what everybody plays is PPR. So I enjoy when my receivers are getting dinked and dunked to because it allows them to automatically score points without having to win deep down the field, and it happens often. So it's more consistent in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'm going to go with JSN here. Just loved him since, God knows how long ago. Thought he was the wide receiver one of the class, and ironically still is. It doesn't really happen this way that often, but I think, this draft, the top five of this draft kind of shapes up to kind of what we thought it would be last year. They thought there was going to be one quarterback that was going to, elevate and maybe get into the range of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. We knew Bijan was going 101. And JSN was the next best skill guy on the board. So I'm going with JSN.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone besides JSN here at 105. I think he's, before the NFL draft at least, he's got to be the consensus 105 right now. Could even be the 104, depending on how risk-averse people are to Anthony Richardson, or how much they just don't like CJ Stroud. You never know. So JSN could sneak up as early as the 103 in some leagues, but I think 105 is about going to be where the consensus is. So moving on to my pick here at 106, there's three guys that I'm considering, and it's Gibbs, Charbonnet, and actually Will Levis. So I'm not a massive Will Levis fan, but with that being said, if he goes top 10 in the NFL draft, who am I to say that I know more than NFL GMs, right? Like if he does go top 10 in real life, there's not a lot of scenarios where he falls past this 106 or 107, right? People need quarterbacks in Superflex leagues. And while I'm not a huge believer in his game, I'm not a massive fan of it. You could get a guy kind of similar to maybe not that I'm comparing them as players, but in terms of fantasy production, that could be like a Danny Jones somewhere along the line, right? If Will Levis hits and getting that at the 106, there's really nothing wrong with it. Danny Jones has turned into a really solid QB2 in Superflex leagues. So I think that assuming that Will Levis gets top 10 or top 15 draft cap, I'm actually going to take him here just because I think the value is tremendous. And I am so close between Gibbs and Charbonnet that whoever I end up getting at 108, I'm going to be perfectly fine with, I think.
Yeah, and I like Will Levis. I think the comps that people are trying to make for him are a little unfair and lofty. Some people who are saying, "Oh, he's the next Josh Allen," like he slept on and weird things like that. I think they're kind of crazy, but I do like him here at the 1-6. He probably would have been the only other guy I would have gone with, other than Gibbs. Who, thank you for making it easy for me now.
So wait, before you pick Gibbs, and I'll pencil it in here. Have you ever seen the movie Draft Day?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. My comp for Will Levis is Bo Callahan. Like, he's just, I don't know, he's got that persona about him, just a total meathead, seems kind of, no offense, Will Levis, kind of douchey. Could be a good quarterback, projected to go high. I think he fell in draft day. He actually went at 106 to Seattle. So could he go at 105 to Seattle? Could he go to 107 to Las Vegas? Who knows? But anyway, 107, you take Gibbs. Explain the pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the next, highest ceiling guy. He could very well be, with great capital. He's going to get a good investment from a team. And I think, he's just electrifying to watch on the football field and probably is fun to have on your fantasy teams and will make a lot of big plays in the NFL if he is successful and is able to overcome the size disadvantage that he's at. I don't know that he's ever going to be a 3-down back in the NFL, but in this day and age, not a lot of people are. So I think even though it's a really big concern for me and it feels like it's kind of a recipe for disaster, I could also be, I don't want to be the one who skipped on him at the 1-7 here.
Yeah, Gibbs has a sky high ceiling, right? There was a lot of comparisons with Alvin Kamara, and I think even calling Alvin Kamara as his ceiling, that might be a little generous to Gibbs, right? But I don't think it's anything outlandish. Like, we could see it out of him. So I definitely like his ceiling a bit more than Zach Charbonnet's, but Charbonnet is going to be my pick here at 8. I kind of alluded to that as I took Will Levis last time. And the fact of the matter is, as of right now, Gibbs is my RB2 of this class, but depending on landing spot and draft capital, Charbonnet could easily become my RB2 of this class, right? Like, I like Gibbs. I'm not in love with him. I like Charbs. I'm not in love with him. This time last year, when I thought, or not, I guess not exactly this time last year, but when I initially thought that Charbonnet could enter the 2022 NFL draft, I did grade him as my RB3 of the 2022 class. So I was a little disappointed when he went back to school. Funny enough, he's still at worst my RB3 of this year, so it kind of makes sense. He is a really, really good in between the tackles runner. He can catch the ball. He's kind of like a do-it-all guy. He's not going to be an absolute game breaker with his pass catching abilities, but he most definitely can pass catch perfectly fine. 6'1", 220, stereotypical or prototypical size, I guess you could say, for a running back. And if he ends up in an offense, like if he ends up being the guy in Miami, or if for some reason Tennessee drafts him to replace Derrick Henry, or he goes to the Vikings if they end up getting rid of Dalvin Cook. Like, there's a lot of scenarios where Charbonnet becomes not just my RB2, but the consensus RB2. So stay tuned for him and where he goes on draft day. I think he's going to go in round 2, and let's hope he lands in a good spot.
Yeah, and round 2 really ensures that he is, kind of a little bit of a tier break here. I think it's kind of, after the 1-9, after the 108, it's kind of, you have question marks really about, a lot more question marks about some of these other guys, with Quentin Johnson and Jordan Addison. I mean, if you told me this time last year I could get Jordan Addison at the 1-9, I'd be ecstatic. And honestly, I still am now. he is the guy for me. He was the second receiver on my list, or second or third receiver on my list. I think this time last year when I was saying that he could creep up and be in the same tier as JSN and Kayshon Boutte, which is funny to look back at. I still, I definitely love the price on Kayshon Boutte now, and I'm sure I'm going to be taking him later. But yeah, for now, my guy's going to be Jordan Addison. I'm going to go with my eye test at the moment. Obviously, if Quentin Johnston's ends up, a top 6 or 7, 8 pick in the NFL, then things are going to change there. But Jordan Addison for right now is my guy here.
Yeah, and Jordan Addison he's like a home run hitter, right? Like, we don't know what's going to happen with him in the NFL. If he falls out of the first round, which I have been reading rumors is a possibility, I don't think we're going to be taking him at the 109, but I also don't see him falling out of the first round in many scenarios either, whether it be the real NFL draft or our Superflex drafts here. So I do like the pick. He's definitely a lot less risky than Quentin Johnston. I think the issue with Quentin Johnston, and I don't even know if I'm going to take him here at 110, so you might get him at 111. The issue with Quentin Johnston is there's no prospect in this entire class that is more boom or bust than Quentin Johnston. He's going to turn out to be either a top 15 fantasy wide receiver for you, or he's going to be on his second NFL team in 3 years, like 3 years from now. And I don't want to say N'Keal Harry, but if any player is going to be the next N'Keal Harry, it could be Quentin Johnston, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. His big thing in college, the contested catch. What's one stat that very rarely actually transfers over to the NFL for wide receivers? It's being good at the contested catch, unless you're someone ridiculous like Kyle Pitts or Calvin Johnson, right? Like, you don't want that as like the main factor from these college receivers going into the NFL. So my pick here, it's either going to be Johnston for that boomer bust potential here in the late first round, or I also am considering Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, complete opposite of Quentin Johnston, right? He's undersized. The thing with Zay Flowers is I just love the way he plays. He's aggressive. He is just, I don't know. There's just something about him that makes me want to root for him. And I think he's actually going to get pretty damn good draft capital. There's a lot of rumors that he could potentially be the second receiver off of the draft board in real life. And if that happens, that means he's getting, top 15 or top 20 draft cap, which at that point, like, damn, sign me up. So the question here is, am I betting on Zay Flowers getting the draft capital, or do I want to bet on Quentin Johnston being the boom instead of a boomer bust? I'm actually going to go with Zay Flowers. I'm going to be a little risk averse here. Well, I guess it's risky in its own way, but I just genuinely want to root for Zay Flowers. Maybe it's personal bias. I don't know, but I'm taking him over Johnston.
Yeah, and it's not a shocking value for him. There have been NFL GMs apparently who have said that Zay Flowers could be the best receiver in this draft, or that they think that. I think you made my pick again. I'm drafting from an easy spot. I didn't realize how easy it was going to be for me, at least going there. I think I've made some pretty smash picks, but I mean, I think Zay Flowers is a guy that you root for. And I mean, this is a spot where you can take him. If he does get that draft capital, obviously you cannot let a receiver who's drafted in the first round fall out of the first round of your rookie drafts. I've heard a lot of people say that, and I will definitely abide by that rule and agree with what you're saying with Zay Flowers here. And I mean, again, my pick is pretty easy. Quentin Johnston. I don't know if there's really much to say. Again, at the 111, you're very happy that you're getting a guy with this kind of profile. He could either be DK Metcalf or he could be N'Keal Harry, really. So I'm going to go with that. That's exactly the kind of profile I want at the 111, and I'm going to take it and enjoy it.
Yeah, he's going to be one extreme or the other, right? We both talked a lot about him over the last several minutes, so I'm not going to dig into it anymore. But yeah, I mean, you were considering taking him at 1.9. I considered taking him at 1.10. It makes sense that the skid stops at 1.11. So here at 1.12, I have a decision on my hands. And I'm going to be completely honest with everyone watching this. I'm not as high on this running back class as like anyone else. I might be the lowest person in the entire fantasy football space that like nobody is lower on this running back class than I am. I'm going to let the NFL draft make my decisions for me because I see a lot of really decent running backs, but the issue is they're just decent. There's a couple things that each one of them does really well. There's a couple things that each one of them don't do really well. Some of them have size. Some of them are better pass catchers. Like they're all over the place. I'm going to let real life draft cap and situation tell the story. But with that being said, as of right now, pre-NFL draft, there is no running back that I'm considering outside of these top three that already went. There's no running back that I'm even considering taking in the first round here. So that means that my pick is down between a receiver or a tight end, the tight end being Michael Mayer. I'm probably not going to take Mayer in the first round, though, just because you need to sit on rookie tight ends for 1 to 3 seasons before they finally hit their ceiling, before they hit their stride and actually start producing for your fantasy squad. And as good as Michael Mayer could be, this time in 3 years, he could be a top 5 or top 6 dynasty tight end, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. But if I'm taking a guy in the first round, I don't want to wait 3 years for the production, right? So the one guy that I know is going to give me day one production is going to be Josh Downs. He's going to be like the poor man's JSN of this class. He's going to immediately slot in as a slot receiver to an NFL team that needs him. He's going to be, I would say at worst, like a top 45 or top 50 overall pick in the NFL draft. He is not an elite player, but he is about as safe as they come. Like I said, going to have a day one role with whatever team decides to take a chance on him. And I think he's a really talented receiver, right? Like I said, nothing elite to like about his fantasy game. We're not getting a wide receiver 1 drafting Josh Downs here, but I could see, a yearly mid to low end wide receiver 2. And at 112, I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, and he had an absolute monster year in North Carolina. His sophomore year. He was the guy, put up like 1,600 yards or something ridiculous like that. He was just insane, and a lot of people are saying he's early second, late first, like capital kind of guy. So I think you're right when it comes to these running backs. After Charbonnet, we're kind of assuming that Charbonnet is going to get that draft capital, the day 2 capital, and I'm sure that if he doesn't get that capital, you're not taking him at the 108. So we're gonna have to redo this video in a couple of weeks, but yeah, so it's going to be tricky picking between these running backs. I think we have a better idea of when it comes to the receivers that are going to be getting their draft capital, and Michael Mayer. I think we're comfortable knowing where he's going to get drafted. This is where it kind of gets tough. Do you just start? Obviously, if I have 6 picks in the second round, then I might just smash every single running back here. But in real life, I wouldn't have that. So I think I'm going to take a guy who has, again, a receiver that has a lot of upside. We know he's a deep threat guy, and he a lot of people don't think that those guys are the most fantasy productive. But I don't want a lot of field stretchers on my team. But who knows? Who knows what he could really pan out into? He had a very productive year. His last year here at college, and he's pretty much, he checked a lot of the boxes that you want to see out of your wide receivers coming out. So I'm going to go with Jalen Hyatt here, and kind of just have some fun with it. I don't mind spending the second round pick on him. I feel like even though it's the 201 and it's that imaginary line, I think it's probably fair value, and I think he's a safer bet at this moment in time until any of these other running backs gets capital. So I'm going to take him right now just based off of the information we have.
Yeah, and there's only 6 wide receivers that I can guarantee are going to be either a first or second round pick in real life. And you just drafted the 6th one, right? Like all of these guys, every single one of them is going to be gone by the end of the second round. And these are the only 6 receivers that I could guarantee that with. I'm going to chase that draft capital. I'm going to chase that production. To your point, Jalen Hyatt, kind of labeled, a one-dimensional kind of vertical route runner kind of guy. But I think that his game is a lot more deep than, no pun intended, but a lot more deep than people give him credit for. I mean, he's a Bolitnikov award winner for a reason, right? He is a very good wide receiver. And I know that award is about 50-50 over the last 15 years on whether or not the receiver boomed or busted in the league. But if you're giving me a 50-50 shot at a really good receiver at the 201, I'll gladly take that every time. Little disappointed that you went with him there because I wanted to take him at 202. But very good pick. Not going to yell at you for that one at all. So I want to bring up what you said about taking all of these running backs in the second round. I completely agree with you. If I have multiple second round picks right now, I'm just going to take shot after shot on these running backs, right? Tank Bigsby, he can run through anyone. Devon Achane, really good pass catcher. Tajay Spears, really good kind of do-it-all guy, but Achane and Spears are both a little undersized. Zach Evans, pretty decent at what he does. Roshan Johnson, also very good at what he does. Kendre Miller, Sean Tucker. I mean, the list goes on and on. But every single one of these running backs, we don't know if they're actually going to have day 2 draft cap. We don't know where they're going to end up in real life. And there are not many situations that a running back can land in 2023 and have an immediate impact. And we know that running backs, if they don't break out by the end of their second season, the chances of them breaking out at all is probably slim to none. So we kind of really have to wait to see what kind of situations these guys end up in before I'm really going to pass any sort of judgment. When it comes to wide receivers and tight ends, I'm always drafting talent over situation. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. When it comes to running backs, talent is obviously the main factor, but landing spot is, in my opinion, equally as important. So with that being said, I'm going to take Michael Mayer because I know the talent's there and I don't need to worry about where he's going to land. I have a feeling there's about to be a run on running backs in our draft here, but I had to get this pick out of the way because there's not a single running back that I'm taking blindly over Michael Mayer.
And I'm actually glad to hear this because the last time that we had spoken, I think you wanted to talk Dalton Kincaid over Michael Mayer. But I mean, obviously I love Michael Mayer. This was a guy who, I think you tweeted about it the other day that a lot of people were, talking about one of the guys to be really excited about for this 2023 class. I think he still is. Nothing's changed. He's still a stud tight end who's going to get really high draft capital and in most people's eyes right now. So I would take Michael Mayer there in a heartbeat. I think, if this was real life, I would not go with Dalton Kincaid. So I can't do that here. Obviously, if I had the 203 and the 205 and the 207 and the 209, it might be a different story. But here we are again. I'm gonna stick true here to my rankings and to who I liked. From going back to this time last year, just watching them play throughout this season. And I'm going to go with a guy who I thought, could have been a first-round pick last year. And I'm going to stick to what the board thinks here, and I'm going to agree with them. I'm going to take Tank Bigsby. He's a guy who was, really highly touted coming out of high school. Was one of the top running backs in the class, and he didn't really, shock anybody with his production or anything like that. But I think I'm gonna like to take a shot on him and hope that an NFL team finds use for him. And I think I'm probably getting what I paid for with this pick and knowing what I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Tank is, to be completely honest with you, Tank is one of my least favorite running backs in this group. And the only reason why is that I don't have any recency, or maybe it is recency bias. I like a couple of the other players, just watching their film over the last several months a little bit more than Tank Bigsby. Tank, for me, he feels one-dimensional. I know he's not. I know that he's more than just a run in between the tackles guy, but that just, when I see his name, that's what I associate it with. And I honestly just couldn't tell you why, right? Maybe it's because his name is Tank and I just picture straightforward motion, right? I don't know. But there's nothing wrong between taking any of the running backs here. It's really just from this 203 to like 208 or 209 spot. Like I said, I think there's going to be really big run on running backs for us. And it really just comes down to personal preference. So you kind of explained what you liked in Tank Bigsby. From here, I'm going to take Zach Evans. And that's just because out of the guys that are left on the board, I think he has the highest chance to get earlier draft capital. I think he's the most complete running back on the board and also has the size to boot. 5'10", 5'10", 210 pounds. It's the size that you want your running backs. I like A-Chain, but he's undersized. He's like 175 pounds. Same thing with Tajay Spears. I actually like Spears more than I like Zach Evans, but he's not the prototypical size, right? I think he's also like 175 or 180 pounds. He's a small running back. And at 204, I'm going to invest in the guy that has the prototypical size, that has that thing that I think NFL teams are going to want to go out and get. Either one of these guys, Tank Bigsby, Zach Evans, maybe a couple other ones, they could sneak in to the third round. And I think that's going to be the threshold once we get into our real life rookie drafts, right? We're going to see, okay, which of these running backs actually went on day two? Because obviously your day two running backs have a significantly higher chance of making an impact than your day three guys. So give me Zach Evans just because I think he can get that draft capital.
Yeah, and I didn't think you were going to go with him there, but he was who I wanted here at the 205. Really do like Zach Evans. He was a guy who it felt like we were always waiting for him to break out all throughout college and just kind of never did, but is probably still going to get his shot in the NFL. Definitely going to get his shot, obviously. Obviously, he's going to get drafted. But, yeah, so it just depends on really where and how early. Here, I'm going to go with Mr. Roschon Johnson. He was behind our man Bijan, and I think he's got a good chance to be a diamond in the rough here. He's got everything that you want in a running back, and he did look good in the role that he played for Texas, and he was productive in the snaps that he saw. So I do like Roschon Johnson. He's a big boy at 6'2", like 225, and I think I like what he has to offer for an NFL team, and he could really just be a big bruiser and a guy that gets a lot of touches throughout a game that gets relied on heavily if he goes to the right spot and gets the right kind of offensive coordinator who's willing to do that. But again, diamond in the rough here at 205, and it's hard to get mad at anybody for who they take. I could reach down right now and take Rashee Rice, and nobody would really be able to argue too much with me here.
Yeah, we're at that point in the draft where it's kind of just get your guy. It's going to change after the NFL draft for sure, because draft capital and landing spots going to define a lot for us. But Roschon Johnson has been getting a ton of traction over the last couple of weeks, and he's quickly rising up. I've seen him ranked in the top 5 for a lot of people's rookie running back rankings. And to be completely honest with you, I was going to heavily consider him here at 206. So I like that you took him at 205. But I'm going to go back to the wide receiver well, and I'm going to take Cedric Tillman at this pick. A few years ago, now this is me telling on myself, but a few years ago, I was abnormally high on Terrace Marshall. And then he got drafted by my favorite NFL team, and it was all systems go, right? Like the bias came out both pre-draft and post-draft. It was nuts. But everything that people, myself included, everything that people liked about Terrace Marshall and what we thought Terrace Marshall could become, we have a do-over in Cedric Tillman. Very identical size, 6'3", 215, absolute bully when it goes to getting the ball. He gets a lot of credit for his contested catch, but he's so much more than that. Smooth route runner, great hands, really good at adjusting. If you want to take a boomer bust pick on, a guy that is more of a contested catcher, if you don't want to take Quentin Johnson all the way up at 111, you take Cedric Tillman over here at the 206. So really like him. And honestly, if he didn't get injured his senior year and he played a full year next to Jalen Hyatt, I think Tillman would be widely regarded in a significantly better light than he is now. As a junior, he had over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns, which was pretty damn good. So who knows? Maybe the injury is going to tank his draft stock a little bit, but could be a diamond in the rough for you here in the middle of the second round.
Yeah, and he's another guy who's a good, second round flyer and could end up being, a low end wide receiver too, I think, somewhere in the NFL. I think he could be a guy who sees snaps pretty early. I think he could end up being a day 2 receiver. I think he could go in the mid to late second round, early third round. So I do like Cedric Tillman there as well. Here I'm gonna go with a guy who another running back just had a monster year. And I'm gonna go with Kendre Miller out of TCU. He was a big part of why they had such a great run this year in college football, and why they went so far to the college football playoffs, and did all the things that they did. Multiple 100+ yard games. You look at this game log is just insane. Like, I'm stuttering looking at it. 138, 158, 120, 153, 104, 88, 136, 142. Just that massive stretch, just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. I mean, the guy was just nothing but productive, and really can, I think, just do everything that you want as an NFL running back. And I think he's set to be a very good running back in the NFL. And I would love to be able to have this pick and to take a shot on him here.
And he's kind of a bulldozer too, right? He's drawn comparisons to Marshawn Lynch, which honestly, if you watch some of Kendre Miller's tape, it's kind of hard to argue against it, right? Like, he is an absolute bulldozer out there. The only thing that concerns me about Miller is if he'd have a passing down role in the NFL. But with how good he is, if he gets day 2 draft capital, or maybe even early day 3 capital on a plus landing spot, he could fight his way into some playing time early on in his career. And who knows? He's one of those guys where he could go out there, put together a few solid runs, and start taking the role away. So I like him there at 207. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Similar tier to Bigsby, Evans, Roschon Johnson. Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm stuck here. I'm not taking another running back. I like Kayshon Boutte here just because really good boomer bust pick at 208, right? Like, this time last year, people, aka Tyler, was saying that his wide receiver 1 in 2023 was either going to be JSN or Boutte, and that wasn't a hot take at the time. That was a very common thing, right? Boutte was highly regarded this time last year, and then kind of tore himself down in 2022, but it is what it is. So do I want to take the upside right there with Boutte, or do I want to go back to the tight end? Well, take Dalton Kincaid. Like you said, for a while there, I kind of liked Kincaid a little bit more than Michael Mayer. They're very similar players, had very similar stat lines in college as well. The only difference is Michael Mayer's not coming off of that big back injury, but doctors are saying Kincaid is healed up, ready to go, could go in the first round of the NFL draft. And if I can get a first round player here at 208, it's kind of hard to say no to, right? So I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid because I think he can get that first round draft cap. I'm going to be waiting for him to produce probably for a year or two, but it is what it is. I just got a first round player at pick 208.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when it comes to these tight ends, you think to where the dynasty landscape really is right now. And I don't think the community really isn't paying a first round pick for almost anyone. I mean, are you going to get, is someone going to give you the 108 for TJ Hawkinson? I mean, I would. A lot of people wouldn't, though, give Zach Charbonnet up for TJ Hawkinson on the clock, or Jahmyr Gibbs up for TJ Hawkinson on the clock. Think about that. I mean, Mark Andrews even has question marks now, considering Lamar Jackson might be leaving, which I don't really think is the worst thing in the world, because I think Lamar Jackson kind of eats a lot of the fantasy points out of that offense anyways. But still, I mean, Travis Kelce even has his question marks. Kyle Pitts has his question marks. A lot of people don't want to spend a first round pick on him. So when you're going to take them, it's going to be in these spots to where it doesn't cost you more than you're ever going to be able to get back for them, I think. Here I'm going to go with my guy, and mostly because I know you're taking him with the next pick, Kayshon Boutte. Yeah, we all know the story. Everybody loved him, and now everybody hates him. And yeah, we're all hoping. And if you told me this time last year, again, 2-9, I'm getting Kayshon Boutte, I'm doing backflips about it. But obviously, it's a different situation now. I still think that he is a good wide receiver. It's tough, though, because usually those guys who are good in the NFL prove it in college, and at least do what they're expected to, if not a lot more. And Keishon Butte never achieved that. So I'm gonna take him as this flyer here, and I'm sure it probably doesn't really shock you, but yeah, he's my man.
No, doesn't surprise me at all. I would have been more surprised if you didn't take Butte there. So won't really fight against that pick. That's for damn sure. My 210 here, it's going to be Hendon Hooker. I'm not really putting a lot of thought into that, except for, I mean, Hendon Hooker, he's old, right? Like I think he's already 25 years old or something like that as he's entering the 2023 draft. Like he's not a young quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a pretty decent quarterback and he could play himself into a starting role. I think he is going to get second round draft capital, and I think it's going to be earlier second round. So listen to this. These are teams that could take a flyer on Hendon Hooker in the early second round. We got the Rams at 36, Seattle 37, the Raiders at 38. You got Tennessee at 41, Atlanta at 44, and then Washington and Detroit back-to-back at 47 and 48. With those and Tampa Bay at 50, right? With all of those teams sitting there in the early second round pick, with Hendon Hooker, a mostly proven quarterback, right? Just sitting there, I could see one of these teams taking the flyer on Hendon Hooker. And I don't know if he would compete day one if he does end up in Tennessee or with the Raiders or with the Rams. But he could compete day one if he ends up in Atlanta. He could compete day one if he ends up in Washington or Detroit or Tampa Bay. Like, who knows? But could be nothing, could be something. But if I have even a chance of filling my second QB slot at the 210 in my draft with a guy that's probably going to go in the second round in real life, I'll take that all day. Give me Hendon Hooker at 210.
Yeah, and the thing about Hendon Hooker is like he is not a long-term, like really huge investment for an NFL team. So I could see why they would take him in the second round there. And it doesn't really eliminate them from drafting quarterbacks, another quarterback next year. That we know that's another good quarterback class, a very good one. So yeah, a lot of upside with getting another quarterback in the late second round. I think it's pretty equivalent with his NFL value, and you're probably right about everything you said. Those teams that can use a quarterback and definitely have some room for competition, he can go compete. But there's a lot of rooms where he will not. So there's a chance that he slides a lot further than that, but that's yet to be seen. So here I'm going to take another one of my darlings here, Sean Tucker, the track star out of Syracuse, who didn't have an incredible final year, but I think he showed plenty of athleticism throughout his career, and he was really a key focal point in that offense for a long time. And really proved a lot and just passed the eye test for me. And we're getting to the point here where it's eye test time. So I love Sean Tucker. I loved watching him play, and I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the NFL if he ends up in a significant committee role somewhere, if he gets the draft capital and the opportunity.
Yeah, and Tucker can do it all. The big question is, because forgive me if I have this incorrect, but he didn't participate in the combine, right? Because he was injured.
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, so I think that's going to affect his draft capital for sure. I like using the mock draft database to do all of my NFL mock drafts. Half the time, I don't even do them myself. I'll just let the mock draft database simulate them, because that specific website, it kind of I guess it combines everything from across the web to formulate a consensus. And the thing that worries me about Tucker is he's currently, and granted, like most of the mock drafts are done by people like us who are just throwing darts at a board, right? But Tucker's consistently going like late fourth, early fifth, maybe even late fifth round. And running backs that find themselves in those situations do not often get a chance to go, right? Like in recent years, we've seen Pacheco, we've seen Algier. I don't want to say James Robinson. I think he was actually undrafted, but it can happen for these day three running backs, but it usually doesn't, right? So keep your eyes peeled on Sean Tucker. If he sneaks into day two of the NFL draft, he's shooting up this draft board, right? Like, and he's not going at 211. He's going to he could go all the way up at 203 where Tank Bigsby is going right now, in my opinion, if he gets day 2 draft capital. So this is one of those players where I'm letting the NFL decide what I think on him.
Yeah, 100%. And again, this will probably entirely change after the NFL draft. Probably, the top 8 will, or no, I should say, I mean, I don't know, I guess you could look at the top anything, top 5, top 7, top 8, probably the same guys. It's just they're going to be shifted up a little bit. It's just going to be jumbled. A lot of these guys we love, we're still going to love after the draft, but, we always say not to let landing spot try to like influence things too much, but draft capital certainly does shake things up. So that's going to be the case here for a lot of these guys. And it's just going to be a trend going forward. I think that we should just rely on what the NFL says and stop trying to beat them.
Yeah. And we're going to be doing another one of these drafts in a couple of weeks after the NFL draft. I imagine we'll do kind of like an immediate reaction one the week following, right? So definitely looking forward to see how things shake up. I know I got one more pick to make here, and I'm stuck between 2 guys. I'm stuck between Tyjae Spears and Darnell Washington. Tyjae Spears, I really like him a lot. He is, like I said, a do-it-all running back, but he's pretty undersized, and I don't want to count on an undersized running back like that to come in, beat the draft capital, beat whatever committee he's in, and really make an impact. So 212 is about where I'm comfortable in taking him. I could see him, if he does get day 2 draft capital and there is a team that shows that they believe in him that much, then yeah, he'll creep up my draft board. But at this point, I would be comfortable with taking him. But Darnell Washington is definitely, a my guy that I have in this rookie class. I think he's a freak. He's like 6'7", 260, 270 pounds. He's absolutely massive. And he can move. He can make the adjustment. He's got a really good ball tracking skills, I guess you can say. And he's a hell of a blocker. And I know that doesn't really matter for fantasy purposes, but it matters a ton for rookie tight ends getting playing time. There's no faster way for a rookie tight end to get on the field than being a good blocker. And that's what Darnell Washington can and will do. He's going to find opportunities to produce very early and often, I think. And all it's going to take is 1 or 2 big games to really get him on the fantasy radar. So as much as I like Tyjae Spears, I'm going to take Washington just because he's a guy I believe in. And I think he's going to get really good draft capital. Like, I think he's going to be an early 2nd round pick at the very worst. I think he'll be top 50. So I know I took all of the tight ends in this mock draft here, but I like going after draft capital. I like going after guys that are just legitimately talented. So give me my tight ends.
Yeah, and I think the 2nd round, turned out to be a little bit deeper than we really thought. Everybody knows all of these guys' names and who they are. So it turned out to be a pretty deep class. I think we have more question marks than we thought we were going to. But a lot of these names in the 2nd round, they are going to have roles in the NFL. So a lot to be excited there. If you stocked up on 2nd round picks, you're going to get 1 or 2 starters out of your 4. Probably 40 to 50% of these guys are going to hit and be able to start on your fantasy roster at some point. So you're probably getting exactly what you paid for a lot of these picks.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, though, right? It's a very deep class, but there's no bona fide answers, and until we know the draft capital, looking at this board, in my opinion, 203 to 212 is one giant tier. Like, if you offered me, if I have the 203 and you offered me any 2 of those picks, even if it's 210 and 212, probably going to take it because I'm viewing every single one of these players as my boomer bust, scratch off guys. Are they going to hit? Are they not? Are they going to get the draft capital? Are they not? So if we're, I don't know, man, that's my thing with this class is there's such large tiers, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing, right? I don't care if I have an early 2nd round pick because it's not much more valuable than a late 2nd round pick. So to your point, hopefully you have a whole bunch of 2nd round picks and you can just take dartboard throw after dartboard throw, and you'll probably hit on at least a couple of them here.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think we should probably point out the tiers here. So I think, I mean, for me, it's 1 to 5. You know, I think is a tier. I think
I would say
then,
one is its own tier here.
yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what the value is going for here, um, yeah, it's Bijan's his own tier, and then I'd say 2 to 5, 6 to 8, and then I'd say 9 to 11 is a tier, then 12 to the 3. And then, yeah, like you said, the 3 to the 12 there. I think that's probably it for me. I don't know if you disagree anywhere there.
No, I agree with you 110%. 101 is its own, 1-2 to 1-5. I'm taking Levis through Charbonnet, maybe Addison. Maybe I would extend that to Addison. I'm not super sold on it, but
I,
I
I,
could.
I think if you extend that to Addison, you have to extend it to Flowers and Johnston.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know if I could, but also like draft capital changes so much. Like Michael Mayer, if he goes to the Chargers, there's no chance he's falling out of the first round in like any Superflex league, right? Like I'm taking him over Josh Downs at 112 at the very least, and I'm considering taking him over both Flowers and Johnston if he ends up with the Chargers or like a super tight end needy team with a young quarterback like that, right? So it's all yet to be seen, but knowing that we don't know where everyone is going to land, I don't disagree with your tier breaks at all. I think that's a pretty good representation, and I would even argue that that last tier probably extends 1 or 2 picks into the third round as well. So we'll see what happens. You know, collect as many picks as you can over the next 10 days in the second round, and just hope you can hit on him. But don't overpay for them. Let's stop overpaying for these 2023 picks.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember like what their ceiling is. Like realistically, what are we hoping that, Bijan Robinson becomes is, I mean, CMC, and it's like, I mean, how many I guess CMC is even like such a high ceiling. There's CMC was, a legendary type of running back when it came to fantasy. So it's like I don't even think you can put that kind of mark on Bijan's shoulders. So if you can get 3 firsts, I don't know who's paying that, but if you like, I know in some leagues you can get like, the 105, the 106, and like a future first. It's like at that point, it's kind of hard not to if you're in a rebuilding situation or even like in almost any situation. It's like you just have to take that process for any running back. There's no running backs in the league right now that you're willing to pay that price for other than Bijan. He's the only one that there's a chance for.
Yeah. I'm definitely collecting offers on him. Like I'm in a 16-person league. I have the 101 and the 102, and somehow I am still a legitimate contender in the 16-teamer. But I'm also been shopping Bijan Robinson, or the 101, I should say. And I mean, you get some good offers, right? Like definitely some of them are tempting. Best one I've gotten so far was the 104, the 111, and the 115, which, like you said, I mean, it is technically 3 first-round picks, but also, we're talking about all these tier breaks and everything like that. Like judging off of this board, it would be the 4, the 11, and the 203. Are you trading Bijan Robinson for CJ Stroud, Quentin Johnston, and Tank Bigsby? I don't know if you are. I'm probably not, though.
No, probably not. But if it was JSN, Will Levis, and a future first, I would.
Yeah.
If it was, CJ Stroud, JSN, and a future first, I would. So I think it's probably time to do it. Because I mean, like I said, I asked that question about Breece Hall the other day, and it's like, I couldn't even get 1 first for him straight up and a 1 QB. I couldn't even get like the 102, and I didn't want it, but I just wanted to prove a point. Like, you can't get more than 1 first for almost any running back, and Breece Hall's ranked the RB2 right now in Dynasty next to Bijan Robinson. Granted, I think Bijan's not a lot better than him. I think he's better than Breece Hall. I think he's the better prospect. And as much as I love Breece Hall, I have to admit Bijan's the man, but I don't like the value that you're able to get for him right now. It's like I would never be able to get the 105, the 107, and a future first for Breece Hall. You can get that for a Bijan right now, and it's probably the last time that it'll be in consideration.
Yeah, and one other thing to consider before we wrap up here too. Fast forward 2 seasons from now, right? If Bryce Young hits his ceiling, or if Anthony Richardson hits his, let's say all 4 of our top 4 picks hit their ceiling, right? So it's Bijan Robinson and these 3 quarterbacks. They're all top 15 at worst. Bijan Robinson is probably your least favorite of those 4 in a startup, which is just crazy to think about. Like, I'm still taking Bijan Robinson at 101, but I think as a community, we all kind of need to take a step back and look at what we're doing here, right? Like Robinson, we know that there's like a 95% chance that he's going to hit, right? Where Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, we all have our questions. Could be really good, could be really bad. Bijan's just kind of the safest out of all of them. But if they all hit, we're all taking the quarterbacks over the running backs in our startups. So just something to consider. You know, like we're saying, if you're not an immediate contender, trade back in the first round. Get rid of Bijan Robinson. It's really hard to do that and to even say that out loud because the excitement of him is just through the roof. But fast forward a couple years from now, he's not. I mean, his value is at an all-time high. There is almost nothing that he can do as a rookie that's going to increase his worth, right? Like I know we're talking about Superflex, but in 1 QBs, the only 2 players that are going over him guaranteed, Jefferson and Jamar Chase. How is he going to gain any more value on either of those 2 guys? He probably won't, right? So just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if you look back to last year, even like we were clearly drafting Breece Hall over everyone else, and I don't regret that pick. It's like if you redraft last year, it probably goes Garrett Wilson, and then you can start talking about either Breece Hall, Chris Olave, Drake London, you know. And at this point, like I don't know. It's so tough to not take those deals right now while they're available. Because again, I could not get a single top 5 first round pick right now for Mr. Breece Hall, the RB2 in Dynasty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
It's nuts. But, you know, like we said, this draft board, it's going to be shaken up a lot. Over these next 10 days before the NFL draft hits, be active in your leagues. If you are not a big fan of this rookie class, or if you want to trade back, if you want to follow these tiers that we've set out, trade back, make those trades, capitalize on everyone else having rookie fever, and just do anything that you can. In my opinion, the most fun time to be in a dynasty league is right before and right after the NFL draft, because it's just hectic as all hell. The league chat is going off. Everyone's making trades. Like it is so much fun. So, you know, make sure you're enjoying this time in the off season, because aside from week 1 and your playoffs, this is the next few weeks where you're going to have the most fun playing dynasty football. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video here. I know it was a long one today, but, you know, it just felt like we really wanted to get on here, give our thoughts on, you know, these top 24 rookies, and we'll definitely be revisiting this again in a couple of weeks after the NFL draft. But this is our final pre-draft stance on these rookies. I can't imagine many things changing over the next 10 days. But before we wrap up this video, Tyler, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, nothing's going to change in the next 10 days. And then, you know, after that, everything's going to change. But yeah, lots of fun to do it with you. I haven't done a long video in a long time. If you're still here, we appreciate you, and hope you found some use in this video for sure.
Absolutely. So for myself, for Tyler, and for Goal Line, we will see you next time.